We're talking today about onboarding and keeping your customers for life. I'm excited because I heard there's a lot of B2B companies here, whether you're B2B, e-commerce, even if you're a consumer app, onboarding is like such an important part of the journey of your customers. We're going to be digging into some data around that. I'm going to be sharing some templates. But first, let me introduce myself. Hello, everyone. My name is Ramli John. You can also call me RJ if it's easier for you. But really, I'm the founder of Delight Path, also author of the best-selling book, Product-Led Onboarding. I wrote that over 3.5 years ago, and it's over 35,000 copies of that sold. A lot of companies have used that to really dig into improving their onboarding experience. And you can actually read it for free at productled.com. And we made that whole book free for everyone to read online. And if you wanted a copy, you can get it for free. But the plan for today is really understanding what onboarding is about, how to get there, and how to improve that with a simple framework called the reverse journey mapping that I've been talking a lot about. Let's dig in. Really, what is important here is to understand what is onboarding all about. What is it? We're talking about onboarding as an important part, but let me get into everybody into the same page by discussing how I like to think about onboarding as an analogy. I like to think about it as a bridge. And really, if you think about it, your product is a way and a method for your users, your customers, to have a transformation, a change in their life, a change in their workplace. And they're somewhere right now where they're struggling. They're not happy with their current solution. They're not happy with their current situation. And what we're trying to do is get them across to this desired outcome, this promised land, this place where after using your product or service, that their life will be forever changed. I know I'm kind of sounding dramatic, but really, when you adopt a product, when you use a product, sometimes your habits change. Think about how you use a new product, like using Calendly or StreamYard or something else. You don't do the same thing the same way once you've adopted that specific product. And the challenge that we often have here is that there's this sharks, there's this gap in the middle, this fear, there's skill, there's maybe lack of skills, maybe there's lack of time, maybe there's not enough budget. And what you're trying to do with your onboarding to your product or service is build that bridge across all of this. And that is what user onboarding is all about. And now that we know what that is, let's talk about why it's so important. There's a few reasons why it's so important. I think the very first one is that when you think about real life connections and how you build a lifelong relationship and friendship with someone, that first 5 seconds matter. The study that shows that you can make an impression, a form, maybe misguided impression on about somebody within the first 5 seconds. You can tell right away based on how they are with the body language, what they're wearing, how they react, how they welcome you, introduce themselves, whether it's going to be a good relationship or it could be not a good place to be at. We know this coffee dates, we know this in job interviews, we know this with business partnerships where you're meeting for the first time, you're trying to vibe each other out, and that's what your users are trying to do with your product. And think about your user signing up, your customer signing up for your product. Really, when they sign up for a product, that's when they're the most excited. They're excited about what they're about to do with your product. And we really have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to tap into that excitement, or else they might have a moment where they have buyer's remorse or sign up remorse. I got this from a company called Bear Metrics quite a while back, but they called this the valley of the shadow of customer death. And I find that funny, but in the reality is, as soon as somebody signs up, if they don't see that value quickly, then they're likely to lose their excitement and passion about your product. And it's going to be all the more painful and harder to really get them to come back to use your product. And a few more things about why onboarding is important. There's studies that show that great onboarding results in long-term success. And that's what we want. We don't want just a one-time purchaser, whether you're e-commerce or if you're a SaaS or a software as a service company. You don't want them to just come in, sign up, and cancel. or if you're a consumer app, you don't want them to just buy once and then leave. Really, this is a study that from Profitwell from a few years back, but I still think it's relevant, that great onboarding results in 2 to 3 times higher retention in the third, the sixth, and the ninth week across the board. And one final thing why onboarding is so important before we dig into why it's so broken and how we fix it. There's this study from a VC. His name is David Scott. He's a partner at Matrix Partners, a VC based in Silicon Valley, and he works with a lot of B2B companies. And one of the things he said is this: in working with a number of B2B companies in their portfolio, there are two main reasons or causes for churn. The churn is somebody canceling their plan. The first is failure to successfully onboard the customer. And second is the loss of the champion who drove that purchase. I really do believe that it is the foundation, like what we saw in the previous chart, that onboarding is that foundation that you're setting up your customer for long-term success. Challenge that we have, it's a lot of products fail at this, and we see this in statistics that for a lot of B2B companies, that 60 to 80% of the customers, they sign up once and they don't come back. That's a lot. A lot of users. Imagine if 100 people sign up for your product, 60 to 80% of them, 60 to 80 folks or users actually don't come back after the first day. And if you have a consumer app, that's even more challenging. And something that I'd like for you to think about in your specific product, is your product in your eyes, just subjectively, how would you rate your product? Is it on a scale from 1, which is worse, to 10 being the best? If you're in the comments right now, wherever you're at, YouTube or LinkedIn or anywhere else, type it in the chat. I'd love to hear from others exactly what that is. What is your product onboarding at? I'm curious what that is. But really, often when I ask this question, I get a lot of numbers that are less than 6 or 7. And there's a lot of challenges with that. Before we get into the solution, I'd like to find out why and give you a philosophy of the process that I'm going to share with you, the framework, the reverse journey mapping framework that we're going to be digging into. Now, often the reason why a lot of onboarding is a challenge is this quote from Scott Belsky. He's the chief product officer at Adobe. And he said in the first 5 seconds, right, in the first 15 seconds, that a lot of users are lazy, vain, and selfish. Now, the first time I read it, I was like 1 second, like, Scott, why would you call my users, my customers, lazy, vain, and selfish? Sounds harsh. It is harsh. But the reality is, the first time you sign up for a product, the first time you bought something, you're probably still skeptical. You're probably wondering to yourself a few things. If without context might sound lazy, vain, and selfish, you're probably wondering, what is this product? How will this help me make my life better? Or how will this help my work better or easier or faster or save me money? How will this make me look in front of my colleagues, or my friends or family if they see that me using this, or create a template or create a report using this? And secondly, it's all about me, numero uno, about myself. How will this help me? And really, that is a challenge that a lot of products has, is we need to show that value quickly. How do we show the benefit of that product really quickly? And it's really about reducing that time to value, how long it takes for people to see the value of your product, the end goal. And that's why I want to share with you this framework. And I'm going to share a template on Google Sheet that will help you kind of apply this to your product, to your service right away. And this framework, it can apply to as much as a B2B software company, to a consumer app, and you can actually apply the same framework for e-commerce or any other services. You can apply. In a teacher workshop, we actually apply this to a restaurant. So like, this whole concept is agnostic to what kind of business model you have, and it's really about mapping out the journey and the wins of your particular customer. So whether you're sales-led, product-led, e-commerce, doesn't matter, this framework will apply and the same template will apply. So let's dig in. It goes back to this framework with this analogy, with that user onboarding is this bridge from where they're at and where they want to be. I always, whenever I think about onboarding, I encourage you to not think about the tool, not think about the product tours. That's usually the first question I get. It's like, RJ, what is the tool that I should use? Should I use AppQ's User Pilot? It's like, if you're starting off there, I would take a step back and ask this question. What is the ultimate win for your customer? What is the ultimate win? Because if you don't paint a good picture of the desired outcome, then you're not going to be able to successfully get them there to their end goal, whatever that success is. And I like to use the word ultimate win. You can call it the aha moment. You can call it the magic moment. I like the word ultimate win because it's after they've experienced your product's full value. They're like, yes, I got that win, and this is the end win. Let me give you a few examples here with Calendly, first of all, which we'll be digging into in a little bit. But Calendly is an easy way to schedule meetings with anybody. Now, you can say the ultimate win is when they create a link, or they do this, or they share that link. But the ultimate win is when they've experienced the value of your product. In this case, for me, the ultimate win for Calendly is when users first have a schedule a time with a contact using Calendly. It's not sharing the link. It's actually the first time they have a contact schedule time with them as well. And this is the same for a company that I was working before previously with AppQ's, where AppQ's is an easy way to create product tours and checklists in your product. But this is something that our team kind of really discussed. What is our ultimate win, right? Is it launching a product tour to their product? But the reality is, what is value? What is a win for our users and customers? And we realized that it's not about launching that tour or getting this live. For us, we define this as when users first see the data in from their flow, which could be a tour or a checklist, for the first time. It's like when they finally, oh shoot, my users are seeing this and they're starting to improve their metrics. So that's one thing. That's the first step. There's going to be 3 steps here. First step, I'd like to ask you that question. What is the ultimate win for your product? And think about that for a second. What is the ultimate win for your product? You probably already know this. That's great. You probably have a clue of what that is. I'd like to challenge you to really think about what is the final value for the product, for the user, from their perspective, right? Like what to them, what is that ultimate win? That's the first step. The second step we're going to dig into is about mapping the rest of those wins, specifically the first one, because this is important. For a lot of B2B products, the ultimate win can take weeks or days, right? Everybody talks about getting your users to that aha moment quickly. But what do you do when you have a product where it requires multiple days of setup, requires multiple stakeholders, where people are trying to get together to make sure that it's all coordinated, where you have lawyers who are trying to approve it and procurement department trying to approve it? Like, it's a challenge and it could take days or weeks. And this is true for Calendly as well, where sure, it's easy to get the link, but getting that first contact to schedule a session with you or a meeting with you, that could take days. Because first of all, think about when you send out that link, that contact could take a few days to like find a time that works for them and then finally schedule it. So what do you do for products that require multiple days or weeks to get them to the ultimate win? And that's why I'm a big fan of this concept that I've been calling the same day win. The idea is, rather than focusing on getting your users or your customers to the ultimate win within the first day, which for some products is impossible. If you can, you should. But if you can't, focus on a same day win that they can do within the same day. Let me give you a few examples of this same day win. Now, Amplitude is a great example, where Amplitude is analytics for B2B companies. It can take weeks to get set up to get your ultimate win, which is seeing data from your users for the first time. So what they've done for the same day win, rather than getting you to try to install, get data, and see data in your reports within one day, which very, very few of their users get done in one day, is They ask you a question up front. They ask you, hey, what type of company are you? Are you an e-commerce company? Are you a B2B SaaS? Are you a fintech? Are you a media company? And based on that, they actually show some data of what your reports can look like based on that specific type of business. Because a B2B SaaS company might care about activation rates and churn rates versus an e-commerce company might care about other things like average cart size value and cart completion rate, purchase rate, things like that versus a media company. And by showing what your report, your charts, your dashboard can look like fully, they're giving you a same day win to say, oh my goodness, I get it now. This is how it can help me find the friction in my onboarding experience through this amplitude. That's one way to get a same day win. Let me give you a few more examples here. With AppQs, what we focus on was getting them to build a product tour as quickly as possible. So that's something that they can do and get going within the same day. So installing our Chrome extension and start building a tour already. Airbnb is a great example where think about how you purchase an Airbnb. And I got a chance to talk to a product manager at Airbnb. And the ultimate win for an Airbnb customer is to pay and book Airbnb and actually get there, right? And see that it's great. Like that's the ultimate win. That is very unlikely for somebody to pay 500 or 1,000, or I know they've increased their prices. Like it could be multiple thousands of dollars to make a new customer do that within one day. One of the things that their product has focused on, their same day win, is get somebody to save a listing in their wish list. And that's a good indicator that users or the customer is saving a list. So at a certain point, they can prompt them, oh, you saved that listing at Tampa Bay, Florida, like 4 or 5, book your session or book your Airbnb now. So they're really saving, getting you to that same day when of creating a wish list. Fresh Test is creating like dummy support ticket that you can reply and close to. Wave Apps is like getting you to start building and branding your invoice. HubSpot is a CRM. They get you to add your first contact. For enterprise B2B companies here, some other quick wins that you might have, some same day wins are watching a video tour or scheduling a kickoff call. Or for Calendly, like we said, is creating and sharing your scheduling like there. So as we go forward, I'd like to ask you this question: what could be your product same day win? What is that simple same day win that a user or a customer within one day, ideally within 7 minutes, right, within a few minutes, can get done and complete that specific action? Think about that and feel free to type it in the comments as I continue on. So that's leading into the second step. That whole thing is really mapping out the rest of the wins in your journey, right? So you've started with the ultimate win. If you're a B2B, you think about your same day win, and then start thinking about the rest of the wins in your product and what could that look like specifically. And when I say a win, I really do mean a win. It's something that your customer will celebrate or find valuable. And I like to think about wins, the specific milestones. So this is like setting up your milestones to kind of guide your customer or user along that journey. Is this specific Mad Libs that I like to think about. So Mad Libs is fill in the words, and there's a certain story there already. So I like to think of a win as action, and then first, and then thing or time. And what that does is a win is the first time they do something valuable to them. So for Calendly, it's creating their first scheduling link, sending their first scheduling link, getting their first booking, and then completing that first meeting with that link. So you're kind of setting up the first moments along that journey. And like I said, you can apply this to non-software products as well. So think about restaurants, right? What is an example of wins for a restaurant? So the first time you confirm your reservations, the first time you sit down in the restaurant, and the first time that you order your appetizer, and then the first time that you receive your appetizer. Those are all wins that you need to be thinking about, because there are steps in between there, which we'll talk about as well. So the last question I want to ask you here is, what could be your other wins in your specific product, or milestone moments you're thinking about, like the first, like the win, the valuable thing that they will actually celebrate for your specific product. That is the second step. The third and final step here is kind of listing out the steps in between those milestones. So you've figured out your ultimate win, and now you have wins along the way, the same day win. Now you have to list out the steps in between to get them set up, to get them there to that wins. Just at a very high level overview, here's what Calendly's steps for each of those wins. Like I said, creating that first link. It might require somebody to connect their Zoom if they're using that, set their availability, maybe also create that link for the first time. And when they send that link, some of the steps might be copying and pasting the Calendly link, sending the link to somebody, and then finally sending that. And then, finally getting that first booking is accepting that calendar invite from somebody, and then completing that first meeting is the ultimate win for Calendly. I keep reiterating this, but this process doesn't just apply to B2B or B2C. It is really about process optimization. And that's what onboarding is really about, is you're improving the process that it takes and thinking through every single step. Is this step necessary to get them to that win? And that is the 3 steps to this reverse journey mapping framework that I have to help teams out. And it's, first of all, identify the ultimate win for your customer or your user. What is their end goal? What is their desired outcome? Second is figuring out all the wins along the way. What are milestone moments, things that you can celebrate with your customer, that you can drive people towards? And the third is finally listing out the steps that they have to set up, specific feature they have to learn, and anything else that they have to do for each of those wins. And like I said, I didn't show any screens here. This can apply to really mapping out that journey that your users have. Like I promised earlier, there is this template that you can take, that you can apply to your product. I think Jacob's going to drop it in the comments. But this is a Google Sheet. I've shared with my students that I teach at Maven.com. I also do this with clients that I work with, B2B companies, where together with their team, we talk about this. We go through this exact process where, hey, what is your ultimate win for your customer? And I bring on 3 to 4 people from their team, because often if you are the founder, you will find really quickly that what you think the ultimate win is, and what your co-founder might think, or somebody from product or customer success might be different, and really kind of agreeing on, here is the ultimate win. This is our goal line. This is what we're trying to drive towards, people towards, kind of listing that out. And then kind of, mapping out all the wins until the end, the first win, the same day win, the second win, and then finally kind of listing out all the steps to get them there. And like, once again, I do this with a team, because you might miss a step, or you might add a step that somebody disagrees with is necessary for this specific path there. And that's the template I wanted to just share with you. Hopefully it can help you. I know there's limited time that we have together here. Happy to answer any questions. But before we do, I'm writing a new book. I said I wrote a book 3.5 years ago. There is a new book that I'm writing called EUREKA, the Customer Onboarding Playbook for B2B companies. When I wrote Product-Led Onboarding, that was more focused for simple products that can have self-serve experience, think like Duolingo or Calendly or things like that. But I understand the complexity of certain B2B products, and it might not apply to make just one component of it, which is product-led. There's 3 other components that we don't discuss as much, which is educational content and human interactions. And I'm going to be writing. It's going to be published June 2025. I shared my first chapter of the book yesterday, and I'll be sharing more resources and templates, like just like the one that I shared now. There's actually a new template that wasn't in my first book, and any updates there as well. You can get it at eurekabook.co, or you can go to the link that Jacob's dropping in the comments as well, which is delightpath.com, where eurekabook.co actually drives people towards there as well. So that's it. Happy to answer any questions that you might have. But if you do have questions that you're like, oh, I should have asked that question, feel free to send me an email. Happy to chat. Ramli at ramlijohn.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn as well. So thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. Happy to answer any questions that you might have right now. So
awesome. Well, I actually have a good question to kind of kick things off as any other questions come in. You mentioned some different tools throughout the presentation. So I'm curious for folks that are maybe either new founders or on new teams and they're not maybe familiar with some of the tools that are easier to use versus like, hey, we're going to build this ourselves, our own onboarding experience. What tools do you recommend people to try? Because maybe they don't have the design support they need or the development support, but they can get this thing up and running.
Yes, I mean, if they have a technical co-founder actually, and they have the bandwidth to code this, they can use JavaScript free. It's a free JavaScript library called shepherd.io or shepherd.js, actually shepherd.js, shepherd like shepherding sheep .js. It's a library that you can create tours and tools like that. Obviously, if you have the budget, it does get quite expensive depending on what it is. I mentioned tools like appcues.com, which I'm a bit impartial. I worked at appcues for 3 years. That's a tool that can help you do that. But there's also other ones that people can check out. Chameleon is another great one. Chameleon onboarding, I think it's chameleon.io, I believe. Yes, chameleon.io. So chameleon like the lizard, chameleon.io. User Pilot is another one that I heard is good that I have not used myself. And then UserFlow is another one. These are all great for startups. If there are any ones like I want that tool to do everything, including analytics, the most expensive one that people look to is Pendo.io. So those are some tools to create in-product experience, make it easier.
Is there like maybe a personal story you can share around a product that you worked on that like significantly changed like the outcomes they were looking for and kind of what it looked like?
Yeah, I mean, one of the companies actually we know, it's from a mutual friend, actually, Amanda and Natividad. I got a chance to work on Spark Toro's onboarding with Rand Fishkin a few years ago. And, that the whole product very early on was something that was new. People call it the audience intelligence tool, which is like, what does that even mean? Audience research tool. And now they've really defined their messaging through my work, and also worked with Georgiana Lotti from Forget the Funnel together. Rebuilt their onboarding experience. And I walked through the similar process. What is the ultimate win, right? And really, it's like somebody. So the tool itself, you can look up your audience, and it can tell you where your audience are hanging out. So if you typed in product manager, or maybe even startup founders, right? What kind of podcast shows do they listen to? What kind of things do they go to? What kind of Reddit forums do they attend? And for us, we realized, hey, that could take some time for them to see value. And really, we focus on the same day win, which is getting them to add like a media asset, like a podcast or a newsletter, to a list. So somebody needs to create a list. And that indicates that the user is searching through potential solutions that they might have, potential media partnership or marketing channels that they might have. Kind of mapped out a simple product tour for them to guide them there. Also put together some of the resources. I know Rand Fishkin is great on video, and he has a bunch of videos together, but like kind of putting it all together in like a help section. And through my work and through Georgiana Lotti's and kind of improving their onboarding emails as well, like over a few months, they increased their activation rate from the trial to paid conversion rate from by 100% essentially. So to double their activation and conversion rate as well. So it's a
Nice.
cool case study that I was lucky to got a chance to work with that amazing team.
Hmm. I have a question around actually like your templates that you make and specifically this reverse journey one. Like, how do you approach like making a template? Like, is you're like, oh, I've been doing this for a while, and I'm just gonna formalize this now, or like, I guess like what prompts you to be like, I'm gonna make a template for this part of the thing?
Yes, it's part of the my process of like I workshop delivery. Part of my process for helping B2B startups improve their onboarding is there's a 90-minute workshop session. So like we get into like FigJam. I know you mentioned Figma earlier. Like there was an earlier session with Figma. I'm a big fan of FigJam as well. And like just
Mm-hmm.
making it interactive. I find like there's a lot of value in kind of pulling together everybody and working through a few exercises to like, hey, what is success for our users, our customers? And like, oh my goodness, you guys don't actually agree on that. Like the founder, the CEO, and like the director of product, like there's something there that you might be a little bit nuanced, but there might be sometimes when there's a little bit of conflict. And those exercises I kind of put together, and like how can I make this like approachable? And obviously having templates is super valuable. So the templates are not part of like it's not an afterthought. It's like it's actually part of the process that I do. So I actually get a chance to refine it as I work with clients, or I get a chance to work with students. Like, oh, this part is not working because it's not resonating with them. And so the other thing I learned is like, sure, I can use FigJam. So I have published some FigJam templates that people can get into the community. So if you go to FigJam community, there's some templates that I've created. But not everybody is can use Figma or FigJam or has a thing. I made the same mistake with Notion. I assume everybody had Notion. There's enterprise company that actually block Notion, which I didn't know. I see your head nodding, right? So I did not know that. So I actually
Yeah.
use Google Doc and Google Sheets as much as possible for all my templates, so that it's as accessible as much as possible. So this template specifically that I've shared on Google Sheet, but I actually have a FigJam version of it that I run through with students and clients that I would not, it would be harder to share than Google Sheet is more accessible.
Yeah. I just dropped the link I found your Figma community profile.
Oh shoot, no.
Uh,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
yeah, yeah.
Still a work in progress.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. I mean, we could just tell people not to go there. But um, oh, the one thing I was going to ask was like when you're working with teams, because you're like an outsider coming in, right? And we're like, okay, we're gonna improve your onboarding. Like, what are some of the common like internal challenges that teams have? Because you're coming in with this certain point of view on how to solve this, right? Like you have your frameworks, you have your mental models around it, and your process. Like for you, when you work with teams, like what is kind of the difference between a team that has a hard time succeeding with this stuff versus a team that like does really well with this, applies everything you're learning? Because I'm sure like there's a lot of like internal, I don't want to call it drama, but like right, like there's a development team, there's the design team, there's product
Right.
managers, like everyone, there's different teams for different parts of the product, and they all have different goals, right? Like, oh well, we want them, like HubSpot's a good example of that, where like they have like multiple products, and like sometimes it's like, well, how do you do tours for that and this? So I guess how do you kind of approach like getting people on the same page, and like what challenges are involved with that?
Yeah, I would say like that is often a challenge I see. One of them is that um, there's a clear division of who owns what. So marketing owns email, and the product owns in product, and customer success owns their one-on-one onboarding. And then they also own maybe like one-to-many education programs like live webinars or knowledge-based articles. And they don't talk to each other. But like the worst one I've seen is like they don't just not talk to each other, but they're explicitly like try to help and like cross the bridge, and they're like, get in your own lane. It's like what, right? That's the challenge. Like really often, like this kind of cross-functional, like onboarding is so cross-functional. We just just mentioned it now. Like you got onboarding emails, usually marketing owns that, and you got messaging from your website that actually impacts how well people realize and use a product. There's product team that owns in-product experience, and then there's customer success that owns the one-on-one onboarding. It's so cross-functional that often the most successful work I've done with clients, there's executive buy-in. So there's a founder who's like bought in, or somebody who's like in the leadership team, and that could be the VP of product or VP of CX or the VP of marketing. And there's somebody in the leadership team who said like, this is a problem and we need to solve it. And the CEO and executive team agree on it. And they're like, we're going to pull everybody together and we're going to work on this. And we're, at AppQs, we actually did this where we brought a pod together, or a squad, like a growth squad, where like there's multiple, like I was from marketing, somebody was coming in from customer success, somebody was coming in from product. And we like built this cross-functional growth squad to kind of help solve this problem in like 3 to 6 months. Essentially, we were together. And that is usually the most successful approach to it, where it's like cross-functional and for a limited time, kind of work through it and kind of figure out and move the specific KPI or needle for that company. And then that's the perfect time that I would get brought in, whether they've already formed it or they need to form that squad. I often require, when I do an audit, I don't just like look at the experience. I actually, hey, we're going to pull in multiple people from your team from different functions, and we're going to kind of align everybody in the same direction through this workshop session.
Yeah, because it's like, as much as like it's about the product and the user, right? That experience, it's also about the team and their responsibilities.
100%.
Like
yeah, it's
roles,
really
like
about,
you were saying, like everyone, it's like, and every company's different. Like marketing owns this versus sales owns that, all that kind of stuff, or customer success manager, whatever, right?
Yeah, it's totally, I think it really is one. I mentioned it in a LinkedIn post recently, how the reason why onboarding is so sometimes fractured a lot in like a lot of larger companies is that different people own different things, and fractured teams create fractured experiences. When you have teams that don't are not working together, then your experience is like not working together as well. And so the customer and the user is like, what is happening? I don't understand, or I'm lost, because there was not a concerted effort or orchestrated effort from the company to solve that specific part of the journey.
Yeah, it's like everyone's competing, like, because they have their KPIs they want to hit, and everyone's competing.
Yeah,
But like nobody wins in that scenario.
nobody
Because the
wins.
customer just gets confused.
Yeah, you're right. I think I like that. Nobody wins. I'm gonna mention that in the book. That's specific.
Yeah, go ahead. Hey, it's all yours. Take it. Yeah, that's awesome. I actually, and I saw that you released like kind of an early version for folks to like review. Have you gotten any feedback yet, or is it just you're like, oh, I'm gonna wait and let people kind of get through? I wasn't sure like how long it's been out now.
It's been out for a day actually. So
this like, hey, I'm trying to remember the timeline.
But this is great. Like, so one of the things, I'm treating the book like I'm treating a product actually. So like I announced it early on. I'm releasing parts of it to get iterative feedback. And when people sign up for the wait list, one of the questions I ask is, it's like they sign up, congrats, you're on the wait list now. And I ask a question: if I can dedicate a chapter of the book to a problem you are solving around onboarding right now, what would it be? And I have gotten like 10, 20 responses to that on my email. And I'm like, this is gold mine, because like, there's a part of it in the book that I was like, oh shoot, I don't cover that. I should, because that's actually a good suggestion. But secondly, I've already gotten this where they are like, oh, this is what we do at our company. Like, I need to talk to you on a call right now, because I would love to bring this up as a story in the book. And it's like, yeah. So I think just that kind of early feedback already when I opened up the waitlist like 3 weeks ago. And like I'm expecting to open up the early readers club, where like I'm inviting about 100 people to read the book in a couple of weeks. So then they'll actually leave feedback on it as well. So I I think that's part of, like I said, I'm treating the book like I'm treating a product, and kind of getting early feedback quickly, and kind of like I have a go-to-market approach, like announcing it early, and like kind of figuring out the timeline as we go to June 2025. Is what I'm shooting for it to be published.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I'm curious. Many years ago, I wrote a book, and I used a platform. I don't know if I think it still exists. It was
Yes,
called Tableau, but it was
Tableau.
their Australian startup. A friend
Interesting.
of mine that I used to write for his blog. This is like 2010 to 12, a long time ago. But it was cool because I could write the book and I could publicly share it to
Interesting.
an email list for them to read early and then leave feedback, which was cool. So I'm curious, are you just using like Google Docs to write it, and then people are just leaving comments? Like, how's that process?
Yeah, I'm gonna be using this tool. Actually, I used it for my first book called "Help Me Write This Book." Help me help
That's
this
the
book.
website?
Helpthisbook.com. Right?
Help this.
It's pretty. It's like, oh my goodness, Ramli. What? It's actually legit. It's the guy Rob
Wow.
Fitzpatrick. He wrote the
Oh
book
yeah,
called The
yeah.
Mom Test, and then he wrote his third book is How to Write a Book That Sells, which is great. I forgot exactly what it's called, but I have it in my thing. He has like a playbook on how to write useful books is what he wrote, and as part of
Yeah.
that, he built this tool with his co-author. He's a developer, and it kind of you can leave comments, you can actually leave reactions, which is friendly, useful. So like people can highlight a section that says this is boring without saying this is boring. So you can highlight, put an emoji like boring, or like this is dragging. So I'm most likely going to be using this tool to go forward rather, and it gives analytics about the book feedback. So I'll probably be using this again.
That's
Yeah,
really cool. I didn't even know that was a thing. I have his first book.
the one
And
that's so good.
Yeah, it's super, super, super good. It's even good for like just writing articles. Like, hey, even if you're writing something shorter format,
Yeah,
whatever, or like, little, PDFs or whatever, like that are helpful. Um, it's just
yeah.
really good strategic way of thinking about like providing information to someone else. Like, how do they want to receive it, kind of thing. Um, that's great. I love that you're doing it kind of like writing in public a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I know
and
you were
the
big on build in public. That's something that
Yeah,
I'm thinking a lot about. Write in public, or create in
yeah,
public, essentially. And
yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah, and I think too, I love that you're doing like, hey, I want to talk to your company and like talk about featuring a story or whatever. I think including people in the book is such a powerful thing, because I did that so the book that I ended up writing, this is like 10 years ago. Uh, I just did digital. I never printed it. I should just print it just from my own archive. Uh, but it was about just writing. Like, hey, if you want to get into writing, like starting a blog, um, like here's like everything that I've learned over writing like 1,000 articles in the past few years. And like, I also incorporated other writers that were like, whether they were like famous YouTubers that started blogging, or like people or were just small bloggers that had like a small niche community or whatever. They all kind of shared, every chapter featured a different blogger. So, because I wanted to showcase all these great writers that exist on the internet, that are sharing things that they're learning, that they're doing, and they all kind of gave their little piece of advice from like their own perspective, which was really, really cool, because it wasn't, because the whole thing, the concept was like, writing is not like about you, it's
yeah,
about like connecting to other people through
mm,
like some thread, right?
yeah.
So like that was kind of like the theme. It was called The Elements of Blogging, was like
I
the
like it.
book that was the title. There's some other book out there that took the title as well, but I don't really care. But years later, it's on Amazon or something. But it just because there are pieces of like, when you're writing a book, like what are the elements that get people to read it, to like it, that make them feel like they're getting value from it, and feel connected. So yeah, anyway, little tangent. But yeah, helpthisbook.com. Very cool. That's very cool. All right. Well, I don't think there's any more questions. We're just hanging out talking about your book so far. So I think we can wrap things up. Thank you again, Ramli, for
Thank
taking
you.
the time to share this. Hopefully folks connect with you after, read your book, access your templates, and use them for whatever purpose they need it for, whether it's today or in the future. So Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap things up?
I think that's it. Yeah. And the other place, if people want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm pretty active there. I share a lot of content around this.
Yeah.
So feel free to just add me on LinkedIn, and then we can chat if you want, or we can just connect over there. So happy to connect with folks.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great one.